Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. I'm so glad you're here. So today I'm going to be talking about how you can go from mundane to magical and how to use language and style to transform your common application essay. And really this goes for all your college application essays, but really language and style are two of the factors that really play a big difference in going from an 8 out of 10 essay to a 10 out of 10 essay, and kind of honing in on your vocabulary, your language, your style, your voice, your authenticity. All of these things are really important things that can help boost your application essay and help you stand out from the crowd. So I think the best way to show this is by going through an excellent example and an average example of language and style. So this prompt is: share an essay on any topic of your choice. It can be one that you've already written, one that responds to a different prompt, or one of your own design. So this is just anything you want to write. And this hook, so I'll start with the hook, which is the most important part of the essay where language kind of matters. The sun was setting over the city skyline as I stepped onto the rooftop terrace. I took a deep breath of the crisp, cool air and let my gaze wander over the shimmering skyscrapers and the window in the winding river below. Okay, so I'm going to point out a couple of things that I think does a great job in this hook. The first thing is there's a great imagery here. You can see the sun was setting over the city skyline as I stepped over the rooftop terrace. I took a deep breath, crisp, cool air, gaze wander, shimmering skyscrapers, and winding river below. Okay, so automatically I can really picture where we are. We're high up, there's crisp, cool air, there's shimmering skyscrapers, and there's a river below. And the sun was kind of setting. And I can see that they're using really active verbs. So the sun wasn't going down, it was setting. Sun was setting over the city skyline, as if the sun was a real person. And they're stepping onto the rooftop terrace. It's not that they're on the rooftop terrace, they're stepping on it. They're taking a deep breath and letting their gaze wander. It's not that they looked at the shimmering skyscrapers, but they're letting their gaze wander. So everything has kind of a verb here, and so it kind of moves the story along because they have a lot of verbs. And one really important thing about style and writing that I learned very late on is that it's not adjectives that makes your writing good, it's verbs. Verbs help move along your story, move along your essay so that you can kind of get from point A to point B and kind of show how everything has some sort of motion. And the more motion you're adding, the better your essay becomes, because the more movement there is, the more energy there is, and verbs carry that energy. That's kind of what you want to know from style and writing from this opening hook. Okay, let's move on to the thesis statement. The thesis statement, and remember, this is just a general outline. This is not the real essay, but this is an outline of what the student is thinking. So the thesis statement is: from this vantage point, I realized that I had spent most of my life looking down, focused on the details of my own life, rather than looking up and seeing the bigger picture. So the reason why this is such great writing is because it's not a sentence that's on its own. It's actually connecting to this opening hook. And so you see that the up and down metaphor, the up and down imagery goes down here. So we're not just saying that there's skyscrapers above them, there's a winding river below, the sun is setting. So everything is all about the location on this vertical plane, you know? And they realize that from this vantage point, from all the way up there, they realize that they've always been looking down on the details of their own life, and rather than looking up at the bigger picture. And so automatically, there's kind of this style to this, where in just two sentences, I'm really intrigued because I'm seeing that this person has this whole theme to their essay, and they're connecting the imagery around them to the imagery of their own life. And so now I've kind of established, or the student has really established in this essay, kind of what the expectations for this essay is, which is how did they figure out that their life, they've been focusing on the details of their own life rather than seeing the bigger picture. What does that mean, and how did that change their life? That's what I'm interested in reading about. And because the student has really set that expectation very clearly, very well for the reader is now automatically interested in knowing what the rest of the story is going to be like. All right, let's move on. So again, the student uses vivid sensory language creative imagery to bring the setting and the narrative's experience to life. The language is rich and precise. It creates a sense of depth, complexity, uses rhetorical devices such as metaphor and allusion to add layers of meaning and nuance to their narrative. Everything I just said. The theme is kind of the importance of perspective and the transformative power of seeing things from a different angle or point of view. Now remember, for this essay to be really good, it still has to focus on this unique stories and details of the student's life. It can't just be all imagery and all ideas. It has to be concrete stories from this person's life. But as a opening hook that kind of draws the reader in, it's definitely very intriguing to know what is this essay going to be about. And now the essay has to kind of ground itself and focus on the students' experiences and how they came to this realization that their life has been focused on the details rather than the bigger picture, and how this change occurred and how this change will affect them as people, as a person moving forward. And so this, you can kind of see how this uses good language because it uses allusions, verbs, metaphors, and you don't need to use all of this, but it kind of shows you that good writing is more than just using fancy vocabulary. It's all about adding energy, adding movement, adding a theme, adding something that connects your writing. And if you can do that, your writing will be excellent and you'll have a 10 out of 10 essay. Okay, the next thing is average use of writing, of language and style. So this prompt is discuss an accomplishment, event, or realization that sparked a period of personal growth and a new understanding of yourself or others. The opening hook is, it was a warm summer day and I was sitting in the back of my friend's car, listening to music and enjoying sunshine. So again, this is a perfectly good opening hook. There's not really many issues with it. It's not excellent like the first example because it could be a little bit stronger in style. But in terms of defining what the moment is, this is perfectly good. And if you're struggling with your opening hook, I really encourage you to kind of just write something down and don't worry about the style so much. Kind of focus on explaining what are the events of your life. Okay, here's where we get to a little bit more of the average part. That day I had a realization that would change my life forever. So it's pretty good so far. It's still simple and straightforward, which is a completely fine way to write your essay. But if you want to focus on kind of creative imagery and rhetorical flourishes, that's kind of what the first one does better than the second. And this language is very clear and easy to understand, which is great. And if you want to add more style, more depth or complexity, that's also really good. Okay. What I don't want you to do is kind of worry too much about, if you have this type of essay, don't worry too much about trying to get this type of essay, because the real goal is to kind of share the story of your life. And it's okay if you have this type of writing, but you're telling really great stories about your life. So if you've watched my structure video, remember that that's a lot more important than your style of writing. I always focus on structure before style because structure is the meat of what you're saying. It's what you actually want to share about your life and your story. And style is kind of just adding the extra few points to make your essay even better. And so that's what I'm showing here is the style and the language. But I highly encourage you to look at the structure video first that I've already posted. The language of this essay, sorry, I'll move on. The essay follows a linear narrative structure with the main focus being a realization and personal growth that followed. And you kind of want to make sure your narrative structure is really strong. And if the narrative structure is really strong, it doesn't really matter what the style is so much. It's totally okay that this is simple and straightforward. But as long as the structure is okay, that's what really matters. And the theme is personal growth and self-realization, but it's not as beautifully written as the first example. And so kind of what I wanted to show you from this whole video is how you can take these elements to make your essay go from mundane to magical writing. And the way you can do that is first focus on structure. Second, focus on verbs, focus on movement, focus on energy. Third, try to figure out if you can have a theme that kind of connects the opening sentences of your essay. So this theme is up and down, right? You can see that there's sun setting down, there's a gaze wandering, there's skyscrapers, there's winding river, there's a deep breath, there's a cool air, there's a vantage point, there's looking down and looking up. You can see that this is really good writing because it's focusing on the up-down theme. There's really vivid description of what's going on around them, and they're connecting that imagery, they're connecting the image to their own thesis statement. And that's what makes this really good writing. If you can figure out how to use any of these kinds of tools to make your writing even better, that's kind of how you go from an 8 or a 9 out of 10 to a 10 out of 10 essay and really stand above the crowd. I really hope this was helpful. Leave any questions you have in the comments down below, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye, everybody.